In the lush, sun-kissed lands of the Kingdom of Isokan, there lived a revered king and his elegant queen. His name was Abba Aotund, a ruler known across distant lands for his fairness and wisdom. He governed not with an iron fist, but with open ears and a generous heart. His people adored him. At his side was Olori Temi, the queen whose beauty was spoken of in every marketplace. Her smile could melt even the iciest of hearts, and her words carried the gentleness of a lullaby. But Olori Temi wasn't just beautiful, she was intelligent, poised, and admired as much for her grace as for her golden looks. Together, they ruled Isokan from a palace carved from white stone, nestled between flowering baobab trees and singing fountains. The royal courtyard brimmed with the laughter of children. Although they had no child of their own, the king and queen loved the little ones of Isokan like their very own blood. Each day, Abba Aotund and Olori Temi would sit in the royal court, listening to their people's troubles, settling disputes with fairness, and giving hope to widows, traders, and farmers alike. Under their rule, Isokan prospered like a well-watered garden, but hidden behind the silk curtains of the palace chambers, a dangerous secret grew like rot beneath ripe fruit. Olori Temi, though loved by all, had grown restless. The king's love was constant, but to her, it had become predictable. She longed not for comfort, but for desire. She began seeking it elsewhere. It started with the palace guards, young, strong men who watched her with eyes full of admiration. At first it was fleeting, a touch here, a whisper there. But it didn't end there. Her thirst deepened. Soon, the queen turned her gaze toward the kingdom's most powerful chief's men, who came to the palace under the guise of council meetings, only to leave with flushed cheeks and trembling limbs. Olori Temi had grown addicted to the danger, the thrill of secret kisses and stolen moments. She was clever, no one suspected. Even as her affairs grew bolder, she masked them with smiles and gentle hands. Sometimes, she invited her lovers during daylight hours, while Abba Aotund sat in council or tended to visiting envoys. But one day, the queen went too far. She sent word to Baba Ifajimi, the kingdom's chief priest, a man of immense respect, whose wisdom had guided the king through war, drought, and peace. She told him she sought spiritual guidance, but her heart had other plans. Baba Ifajimi arrived as summoned, his staff carved with sacred markings, his eyes clouded with age and vision. He was led into her chamber where she waited adorned in gold cloth and beads that shimmered like river water. They spoke at first of omens, of dreams, of the spirits. But soon her voice lowered, her words became smoke. She leaned in close, her perfume wrapping around him like fog. Baba Ifajimi froze, but temptation is a clever enemy. Just as her lips neared his, a knock thundered at the door. A palace messenger announced that the king needed the priest at once. Rattled, Baba Ifajimi gathered his robe and hurried out, forgetting the most sacred item of all, his staff, symbol of his divine calling. Without hesitation, the queen slid it beneath her bed. He left, unaware how near he had come to losing everything. Years passed. Olori Temi's secret life carried on, growing more careless with each passing moon. She wore her deception like silk, smooth and shining, hiding the rot within. But one morning, she awoke with a strange weight in her belly and pain in her bones. Something had changed. "Ayadada," she called softly, summoning the palace healer. The old woman entered, her eyes sharp with knowing. "What have you done, Olori?" she asked. I think I carry a child," Temi whispered. The healer's face darkened. She said nothing, but her silence screamed. When Abba Aotund received the news, his joy knew no limits. "The gods have smiled on us," he shouted. He embraced his queen tightly, blind with happiness. "You have made my life complete." He ordered a festival to span 7 days. Musicians played drums from dawn till dusk, and roasted goat meat filled the air with mouth-watering scent. The people danced in the streets. Wine flowed like river water, but not all hearts were light. Among the guests were Captain Olumide and Elder Bako, both former lovers of the queen. They stood in shadowed corners, their faces tight with fear. What if the child is mine? Olumide muttered. We'll be executed, Bako replied. This is treason. They knew the truth could mean their death, and so they kept their eyes low and their mouths sealed, hoping the gods would protect their secrets. Meanwhile, the queen stood at her window, watching the celebration unfold. She smiled, but her hands trembled. Abba Aotun stood beside her, his eyes bright. I will be the greatest father Isokan has ever seen, he said. She nodded, but inside, guilt pressed heavy on her heart. That night, long after the palace grew quiet and the dancers had gone, Olori Temi slipped out, her footsteps silent as wind. She made her way to the hut of Baba Ifajimi. The flames inside cast flickering shadows on the walls. Baba, she said softly. He looked up, startled. You shouldn't be here, he said. You are carrying a child. My child, and still you come? Temi did not flinch. I came for you, she said. I want you. Again. Baba Ifajimi's face hardened. No, Olori Temi, he said quietly. What you ask is forbidden. It is wrong. It is dangerous. You carry life inside you. This must end. But the queen's eyes gleamed like sharpened steel. End? She scoffed. I decide when it ends. She stepped closer, her voice dripping with venom. If you deny me, I'll tell Abba Aotun that you forced yourself on me, that you used your power to defile me. The priest's breath caught. His shoulders sagged under the weight of her threat. If you do that, he said, voice cracking, it will destroy us both. Olori Temi's lips curved into a cold smile. Then let us both burn, Baba, but I won't burn alone. He had no more words. He gave in defeated by the woman he once respected. And so, though she was already pregnant, he lay with her again, bound by guilt and fear. Weeks passed. What should have been a time of joy for the royal couple became a haunting experience for Olori Temi. Her body twisted with pain, she vomited constantly. The scent of roasted yam or pepper stew turned her stomach. Even the cool hibiscus drink she once loved made her gag. One moonless night, desperate and trembling, she crept once more to Baba Ifajimi's shrine. Something is wrong, she whispered, clutching her swollen belly. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. My skin burns. My dreams are filled with shadows. The priest, seated in a circle of burning incense, looked up. His face was drawn. It's pregnancy, he said carefully. It will pass. No, she hissed. This is not normal, I feel. Something else inside me. Something watching me from within. Baba Ifajimi stood, panic fluttering behind his eyes. Go, leave this place. We cannot be seen together again. Olori Temi left, but the fear inside her only grew. Back at the palace, Abba Aotun watched helplessly as his queen grew weaker by the day. Her skin turned pale. Her eyes lost their shine. He summoned Baba Ifajimi, pleading for guidance. The priest came, draped in white, his face stern. He lit incense, drew sacred symbols on the floor, and began his chants. He danced around the queen's bed, praying loudly. Then he froze. A dark vision slashed across his mind. He saw not a child, a serpent. A snake growing inside her. Stumbled backward, nearly collapsing. His heart thundered in his chest. What is it, Baba? The king asked. Tell me what's wrong with my wife. The priest couldn't speak. He couldn't tell the king that the child he longed for was no child at all, that the queen's womb held a curse, that their sin had angered the gods. So he lied. He took a deep breath. Your Majesty, he said, your queen is suffering from a rare illness. There is a cure, but it lies far beyond our borders. Abba Aotund leaned in. "Tell me, Baba, what must I do?" "There is a sacred herb," the priest began. "A golden bloom that grows only in the distant kingdom of Islade, deep inside a forest so treacherous that even birds hesitate to fly over it. The herb is rare, but it is the only hope." The king's face darkened. "The golden bloom of Islade," he said softly. "That is the lifeblood of their land. Without it, their fields will wither, their water will dry. Taking it would destroy them." Baba Ifajimi nodded solemnly. "I know, but your wife's life is at stake. You must choose her life, or the survival of Islade's harvests." The king turned away, hands behind his back, pacing across the marble floor. He was a just man, one who had never harmed another kingdom. Yet now, his wife lay dying, and the future of his family hung by a thread. Baba Ifajimi watched, hiding the wicked twist in his heart. He had the king in his grasp. "My king," he said, voice honeyed, "I offer myself to lead the journey if needed. I will risk the forest. I will serve your queen with all I have." Abba Aotund paused, his eyes filled with anguish. "No," he said, "this task is mine. I must do it myself. You my king?" Baba Ifajimi asked, surprised. "Yes," Abba Aotund replied. "Only I can ensure the mission's success. If I send soldiers, they'll never reach Islade. Even a whisper of our intentions will bring war." He considered asking Islade's rulers for the herb, offering food or gold in return, but he quickly abandoned the thought. They would never give it willingly, so he decided. He would steal it. "I must leave at once," he said. "Alone." His guards stepped forward. "We will come with you, Majesty." But the king raised a hand. "No, I will not risk your lives. If I die, let it be on my shoulders alone." He turned to Baba Ifajimi. "If I do not return, tell Olori Temi that I loved her. Tell her I gave all I had." The priest bowed. "I will, my king," he said, though in his mind he was already imagining the crown without Aotund beneath it. Word spread quickly through Isokan. The people gathered as Abba Aotund mounted his horse, clothed in plain garments and armed, with nothing but a dagger and a map. His face was stoic, but his heart burned with sorrow and love. He passed through the palace gates, riding into the night, toward the kingdom of Islade, where danger waited in silence. The people of Isokan wept as their king disappeared into the forest. The thought of losing Abba Aotund, their beloved ruler, felt like the sun had vanished, but not all hearts mourned. Hidden among the crowd, the very men who had once lain with the queen exchanged crooked smiles. In their silence, they hoped. The forest would claim him, that its beasts and spirits would feast on his bones. At the edge of the forest, the king stood tall, clutching a faded scroll. It read, "3 paths lie before you, 1 leads to life. 2 lead to eternal ruin. Choose wisely. Do not look back, or the road will vanish, and you shall be lost forever." He exhaled, gazing at the mist-shrouded trail ahead. Each of the 3 paths looked endless and uncertain, blanketed in thick fog. His heartbeat thundered like the royal drums. He thought of Olori Temi, of her pale face, of the unborn child in her belly, and the kingdom that prayed for her healing. His decision would not only affect her, it would define the fate of Isokan. As he stood there, the wind rose, hissing through the trees. The branches creaked like whispers of ghosts. He examined the 3 paths more closely. The first was lush-lined, with green trees and fragrant flowers. It looked welcoming, almost too perfect. The second, in the middle, was narrow and dark. It pulsed with mystery. The third path was wild and foggy, swallowed by shadows and chaos. He felt no clear sign, no divine voice to guide him. But then, something strange caught his eye. At each path's mouth, half buried in leaves and dirt, were human skulls, weathered, ancient, silent warnings. Fear gripped him, In a daze, Abba Aotund chose the middle path. Something about its silence called to his spirit. He stepped forward. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew his crown from his head. He bent to retrieve it and froze. Inside the crown, etched in gold, were 3 tiny skulls, identical to those guarding the middle path. His breath caught in awe. The signs were always with me, he thought. Thank you, ancestors, he whispered, relief washing over him. He looked back at the other 2 trails, and a strange vision overtook him. The first path, so green and lush, was crawling with serpents, hissing, coiled and deadly. Their fangs glistened. The third was haunted, filled with shadowy spirits, their cries thick in the poisonous air. Demons danced across the trees, their faces twisted. Abba Aotund wiped the sweat from his brow. He had chosen wisely. He ventured deeper into the middle path. The forest around him twisted and shifted. Trees moved. The air grew cold and wet. Strange creatures appeared, animals with human faces. Some wept. Others stared. None blinked. The king kept walking, each step heavier than the last. But then, his foot crushed something small. He looked down, an ant, but with the head of a man. Its eyes met his and narrowed. The forest erupted in chaos. Dozens of creatures rose from the ground, crawling, sprinting, flying. The king turned and ran, branches slapping his skin, roots grabbing at his feet. He bled, but he didn't stop. Suddenly, he was surrounded, a ring of demons, spirits, beasts, their red eyes gleaming with hunger. He could not fight. He had no weapons, and even if he did, it wouldn't matter. He dropped his crown. He fell to his knees. "O ancestors," he whispered, voice trembling, "accept my soul. Let me join you with honor." His mind spun, and everything went black. He found himself in a glowing realm, bathed in light and silence. Standing before him was his mother, long dead, dressed in her warrior robes, the same one she wore the day she died defending Isokan. "My son," she said softly, reaching out. He rushed into her arms, tears flowing. They spoke in hurried whispers, telling stories, sharing love. But as he began to follow her into the spirit world, she stepped back. "No," she said, voice firm. "It is not your time." "I want to stay," he said, heart cracking. "You must return. The kingdom needs you. Your child needs you." "Wake up, Aotund. Wake up," he gasped. His eyes flew open. He was still in the forest, but the creatures had stopped. They stared at him, unmoving. He reached up to brush the sweat from his forehead, unintentionally revealing his human face. Instantly, the creatures snarled, creeping forward again. The king panicked, quickly covering his face with his long dreadlocks, mimicking the unnatural. The creatures paused. Again, they turned away. They ignored him. They do not harm what they believe is one of them, he realized. He picked up his crown and pressed onward. Hours later, hungry and weak, he stumbled upon a tree heavy with ripe apples. Juicy, red, glowing like rubies. He had been warned not to eat in the forest, but hunger won. He took one bite, sweet, then another. Suddenly darkness. He collapsed by the roadside, breath shallow, vision dimming. As his life slipped away, footsteps approached. A girl barefoot, carrying a water pot, spotted his motionless body. She screamed for help. Villagers rushed from nearby farms and carried him to the local healer's hut. He drifted in and out of consciousness, the herbs and ointments working their magic. They didn't know he was a king. To them, he was a weary traveler on death's doorstep. When he finally awoke, weak but alive, the villagers rejoiced. They took him to the palace of Abba Aiden, ruler of Eilad and Abba Aotund's childhood. "Friend," Aiden greeted him with warm arms. "Aotund, my brother, what brings you to Eilad after so many years?" Abba Aotund forced a smile, his chest heavy. He could barely meet Aiden's eyes. "He was here for one reason," and it was betrayal. He had come to steal the golden herb, the very lifeblood of Islade's fields. "I've come to see you, old friend," he lied. "To share laughter, to breathe new air, to remember what it means to rest." Oba Iden, delighted, clapped his hands. "Then let us feast." Preparations began at once. Drummers arrived. Palm wine flowed. Dancers twirled under the moonlight. But in the shadows of celebration, Oba Aotund wrestled with his guilt. He thought of Olori Temi, of the child in her womb, and of the priest's warning. Only the golden herb can save her. What he didn't know was that his wife's body held not his child, but the offspring of a secret sin. He danced. He smiled. He drank, but his heart was already breaking. The night sky over Islade danced with stars, while the palace of Oba Iden pulsed with life. There was music and laughter, servants pouring palm wine into calabashes, drums echoing across the hills, and dancers spinning like fire. In the center of it all, Oba Aotund smiled, raising his cup, but inside, guilt gnawed at his heart like a rat in a granary dot as the night deepened. Aotund politely excused himself, claiming he was tired and needed rest. But once the palace quieted, he slipped out of his chamber. Wrapped in a dark cloak, he moved like a shadow toward the sacred grove, the guarded garden where the legendary golden herb bloomed beneath a tree older than the kingdom itself. His hands trembled as he reached the tree, its golden leaves shimmering faintly under the moonlight. He whispered a prayer and gently plucked the herb, careful not to disturb anything else. Just as he turned to leave, 2 palace guards appeared from the shadows. "Your Majesty," one asked cautiously, "what brings you to this sacred place at this hour?" Thinking quickly, Aotund snapped, "Can a man not relieve himself in peace? Do you think I came here to dance with trees?" The guards, startled by the king's sharpness, bowed their heads and stepped back. "Forgive us, my lord," they mumbled and walked away. Aotund exhaled, clutching the herb. Before first light, he crept beyond the palace gates and ran into the wilderness and away from his friend's trust. He ran until his legs burned and the wind screamed in his ears. Back in Islade, Oba Iden awoke to an eerie stillness. He sent a servant to check on his friend. The room was empty, the bedding cold. The king was gone. Moments later, a guard stormed into the throne hall, his voice frantic. "Your Majesty, the golden herb is missing." Oba Iden's face twisted. In disbelief, "No, it can't be. It was Aotund. He has betrayed me." With fury, he summoned his finest riders. "Find him. Bring him back. Retrieve what he has stolen." Meanwhile, Oba Aotund ran through thick jungle paths, heart thudding like festival drums. Behind him, hooves pounded the earth. He knew the riders would not stop, but he also knew he had no choice. He had to make it back. His wife was dying. His child's life depended on this single sprig of gold in his hand. He ran through rivers, over roots, dodging falling branches and wicked thorns. The jungle clawed at him like it was alive. Blood painted his limbs. His robe tore, but he pressed on. He remembered the creatures of the cursed forest, the ones with demon eyes and twisted faces. He let his dreadlocks fall over his face again. Masking his humanity, the forest stirred. The creatures watched, but they let him pass. Still, pain followed. Thorns bit into his legs. Winged beasts whooped. One slashed at his back with talons. He cried out, falling, then stood again. "I must save her," he whispered. "I must." Behind him, the riders of Islade drew closer. Their torches lit the trees. Their voices shouted his name, but Oba Aotund ran with the strength of the ancestors. Finally he burst from the forest's edge, his skin torn, his eyes bloodshot, and his spirit barely clinging on. The walls of Isokan stood before him, glowing in the morning light. His own guards raised their weapons, unsure who this wild-looking figure was. Then recognition dawned. It's the king. They cried, rushing to his side. They lifted him gently and carried him to the palace. The herb never left his hand. In the royal healing room, the king lay unconscious while the royal physicians tended to his wounds. Word of his return spread quickly, but none were more shocked than Baba Ifajimi. The priest had assumed the forest had devoured him. Now the king was back with the sacred herb. Panic flooded Baba Ifajimi's chest. He hurried to the healing chamber, hoping to steal the herb before it could be used. He crept close to the king's bedside. The herb lay near Aotun's hand. He reached out. Aotun's eyes snapped open. The priest froze. "I was just checking your temperature, my king," he stammered. "You gave us quite a scare." The king's gaze held him, cold and sharp. He said nothing, but his silence was heavier than any accusation. Despite his pain, Aotun stood. "Prepare the queen's chamber," he said. "We treat her now." As he approached the room where Olori Temi lay, something strange pushed back against him, an invisible force. The herb pulsed in his hand, resisting. He stumbled. The crowd of elders and guards behind him looked on with concern. "What's happening?" One whispered. Aotun pushed forward again, but the resistance grew stronger. The herb glowed, trembling, almost screaming in his palm. The air thickened. The atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, a blinding light enveloped the herb. Gasps echoed through the room. Then, a hiss. A long, deep hiss. From the queen's belly, a snake's head pressed against the skin, its eyes moving beneath her flesh. Cries rang out. Women screamed. Some fainted. Aba Aotun stood frozen in horror. The queen's pain surged. She clutched her belly, moaning. The herb's power flared once more, but refused to act. The priest's face paled. "It's an abomination," whispered one elder. "Only if a woman is cursed will she birth such a thing." Aotun turned to Temi, his voice trembling. Tell me this is not true." Tears welled in her eyes. "My king, I was weak. I betrayed you." The room went silent. I lay with another. With many, I do not know whose child this is. Gasps filled the air. Aba Aotun's heart shattered. But before he could speak, his eyes darted toward Baba Ifajimi, who was quietly backing away. "One more step," Aotun said coldly, "and you die where you stand." The priest froze. "Who?" Aotun asked. "Who was it, Temi?" The queen, shaking, sobbed. I lay with 24 guards, and the priest." The crowd erupted in shock. The guards exchanged glances. Elders murmured in disbelief. Some fell to their knees. Baba Ifajimi said nothing. Temi continued. "I couldn't stop. I was drunk with power, with desire. And now, this child is no blessing. It is punishment." The golden herb flickered. Its glow dimmed. Baba Ifajimi bowed his head. "Forgive me, my king. I was weak. I lost my way." Aotun turned his gaze back to Temi. "I crossed kingdoms. I faced death. I fought spirits and stole from a friend. For this?" He whispered. She looked at him, broken. "I didn't ask you to." Aotun's jaw tightened. "No, you didn't." He dropped to one knee beside her, the herb still pulsing faintly. "I came to save you, but now I understand. Some things are beyond healing." He stood and turned to the priest. "You are stripped of your title. You will be judged." Then to the guards, his voice low, "Prepare the cleansing fire." "No," Temi cried. "Please, save the child, whatever it is." But Aotun had already walked away. Behind him, the golden herb turned black. When Olori Temi finished her confession, the palace fell into stunned silence. She had named not only the chief priest, but 7 elders, including the king's most trusted deputy, as participants in her betrayal. But the blow that shattered everything came next. "The child I carried," she whispered, "was not yours, my king. It belonged to Baba Ifajimi." A hush swept through the crowd. Aba Aotun staggered back. His face lost all color. His vision blurred. The world, the one he had bled for, sacrificed for, was collapsing beneath his feet. He thought of the forest, the spirits, the poison, the pain, the herb he had stolen, and the kingdom he had betrayed. All for a woman whose heart had never truly been his. His knees buckled. And for the first time in Isokan's history, a king wept openly. The elders gasped. Soldiers turned their eyes away. The villagers stood frozen, unsure if they were witnessing the fall of a ruler or the rebirth of a man. Autun's tears weren't of weakness. They were the breaking of a dam long held shut. His pride, his hope, his love, all had been burned in the fire of betrayal. The chief priest tried to speak, but a wave of the king's hand silenced him. The guards surrounded the accused men, Baba Ifajimi, the traitorous elders, and the guards. Named by Temi, one by one, they were shackled and dragged away, but Temi's body couldn't endure the shame. Her soul broke before judgment could be passed. That night, she died in her sleep, her final breath tangled with regret. The child twisted, cursed, and never meant to live died with her. Baba Ifajimi met a fate darker than any death. His body was torn apart piece by piece in a public execution. His soul scattered like ash in the wind. The others were left to freeze. Their punishment was slow, silent, and absolute. Aba Aotund, drained and shattered, abdicated his throne temporarily, appointing his wisest counselor to rule in his stead. He left Isokan behind and returned to Ilad to seek forgiveness for the theft that had nearly sparked a war. But Aba Aiden was waiting. The moment Aotund stepped into the city gates, he was seized. His golden herb returned, his apology spoken. With sincerity and sorrow, Idn listened. His heart struggled between friendship and justice. "I believe your regret is true," he said. "But the blood of my people was spilled during your escape. I cannot let that go unanswered." He sentenced Aotund to 7 years in the prison of Ilade. Before leaving, Aotund sent a scroll back to Isokan. "Obey the one I have left. In charge, I will return, if fate allows." Behind the prison walls, Aotund found silence, but not solitude. The same woman who once found him dying on the roadside returned to his side. Balade, the village girl with kind eyes and healing hands. She brought him food, herbs, and quiet laughter. Years passed. Aotund fell deeply in love with her compassion and light. When his sentence ended, he asked her, "Take me to your parents. I wish to honor them before I ask for your hand." Balade smiled gently. "I have no parents," she said. "I'm an orphan. I have no one but myself." Aotund was moved. How could someone with nothing give so much love? He returned to Aba Aiden and knelt before him. "Let me take her with me," he asked. "To Isokan, let her be my queen." Aiden nodded but warned, "Let it be her choice. Do not force her. If she ever cries because of you, we go to war." Aotund swore an oath to treat her with reverence and love. Baladi agreed to follow him, not as a queen, but as a woman who had come to love a broken man who had learned to kneel. When they arrived in Isokan, they were greeted with drums and cheers. The kingdom had changed, new buildings, new laws, a renewed sense of peace. But the people remembered their king, and they welcomed him with open arms. Aotund and Balade were married in a celebration the land would never forget. The feast lasted 7 days, and the joy healed what sorrow had once poisoned out in time. Balade became Queen Balade, and the people adored her for her humility and grace. Years passed. The couple was blessed with twins, a son, Aowol, and a daughter, Morinake, but joy turned to concern as the children grew. They could not walk. At first, the healers called it delay, then weakness, then mystery. Years passed and still, the twins crawled instead of walking. No remedy helped. No magic worked. Queen Balade wept. "Is it something I did?" she asked. "I do not know," Aotund whispered, "but we must not give up." They tried everything: spiritual baths, mountain herbs, river rituals. Nothing worked. Then, one morning, as Queen Bolade stirred porridge, Moranek called from the bedroom. "Mama, I'm not hungry. I already ate." Bolade froze. "What did you eat?" "Jollof rice," the girl replied. Bolade blinked. "But no one cooked jollof rice today." Later, her brother Aowol said the same thing. "There's a woman," he said. "She feeds us at our dreams." Bolade felt a chill crawl down her spine. She ran to Autund and told him everything at once. The king summoned the new chief priest. The man listened carefully, then requested a painting of Olori Temi, the former queen. When the image was shown to the twins, they both nodded. Double quotes. "Yes," they said. "That's the lady. Her food is always sweet." The room fell silent. The priest's face darkened. "This is no dream," he said. "This is a haunting." The spirit of Olori Temi was not at rest. Her bitterness had reached from beyond the grave to feed the children of her replacement. "She is feeding them in their sleep," the priest said, "to keep their legs weak and their hearts bound." "But why?" Bolade cried. "They are innocent." "Because the dead queen's soul is trapped in anger," the priest answered. "Her child was never born. Her betrayal was exposed. Her love rejected. Her pain has turned into vengeance." He turned to the parents. "Warn your children. When she comes, they must reject the food. It is the only way." That night, the palace was silent. The children were tucked into bed with whispered prayers. In the dream world, Temi's spirit appeared just as the twins had said. Her eyes glowed red. Her tray was piled with jollof rice, fried plantains, grilled meat, and stew. "Come, my sweet ones," she cooed. "Eat." But the twins remembered their mother's words. "No," Moranek said. "Our parents told us not to." "Please," Temi said, her voice syrupy. "I love you." Aowol stood beside his sister. "You are not our mother. We will not eat." The spirit's smile twisted. Her face warped. The food turned into maggots. Flames sparked from her mouth. "Ungrateful brats." She screamed, but the twins did not flinch. They repeated the priest's warning. "You are not welcome here." Temi wailed. Her voice cracked the skies. Then she vanished into dust. The next morning, the twins awoke. Moranek stretched and stood. Aowol did too. For the first time in their lives, they walked. Cries of joy filled the palace. The people danced in the streets. Drummers played until their hands bled. Aba Aotund and Queen Bolade embraced their children, weeping with joy. Peace had returned to Isokan in 4. Once, it stayed.